you're already framing a picture, so people who are listening already have a slanted vision of what happened. And for him to say, and he didn't mean to do it, like, Piers, how do you know? With that big ass head, are you a mind reader or something? And tell me what I'm thinking right now. With that big ass head, you probably could. All right, so we're going to get into this debate on Piers Morgan. And once again, every time I watch Piers Morgan into these debates, I slowly start to really not like him. Like I'm not saying that I like him, just like as an individual, as a human being. Like, I know 9 times out of 10, like, he's doing this for the show, for the clicks, for the ratings, or whatever he has to feed into. It's just I just see him less and less as someone to be taken serious on any level. Like, literally every single debate I'm watching him, but unfortunately this is where the conversations are going. So of course it is my job. Yes, you're welcome. I have to listen to it and kind of try to get something out of this. So this is in regards to the Daniel Penny case. And if you don't remember, this happened in 2023. And it was an incident on a New York City subway train where Penny, a former U.S. Marine, restrained Jordan Neely, a 30-year-old homeless man, in a chokehold. The altercation led to Neely's death and drew significant public attention and controversy. The medical examiner ruled Neely's death a homicide caused by a neck compression, which jumped into second-degree manslaughter and excessive force on a vulnerable individual. So I had covered this when this happened. Just real quick before we get into it, it's not about race. Like, you can add that in there, and we got the statistics to kind of prove that. But if you took race out of the situation, it is still negligence. This is an individual who was once again in a chokehold for a long, extensive period of time, and he wasn't a threat to anyone. So in my opinion, you need to go to jail. You killed an individual over excessive force. That's simple. It doesn't matter who's black. It doesn't matter who's white. Once again, you can add that in there and still have the statistics behind you to prove, like, hey, it could be some form of, frown upon a black individual. But even without that, this was a weird case for it to have him not guilty. But in any regards, let's go ahead and take a listen to this, man.
Planned killing of a civilian by a ruthless assassin would usually provoke outrage from everybody, no matter their politics. But that's not what happened when this hooded man shot dead states.
Nope,
in some quarters, it's been almost celebratory.
I saw someone say they knew
we're living.
Ask why.
This weekend, you said it's evidence that left to the case of Daniel Penny, who was charged with manslaughter after the violent homeless man he restrained on the subway tragically died. Well, today, just before we came on air, Daniel Penny walked free from court, not guilty of either manslaughter or criminally negligent homicide. And in further breaking news, authorities say they're now questioning a man in central Pennsylvania who was found with a gun similar to the one used in the shooting of Brian Thompson. The man being held was also in possession of a 2-page document railing against the healthcare industry and suggesting that violence is the answer. Well, the New York Times says Luigi Mangione, an anti-capitalist former Ivy League student, was taken into custody this morning at a McDonald's. Here to discuss all this is Taylor Lorenz, author of the User Mag news site on Substack, Tommy Lahren, host of Tommy Lahren is Fearless on Outkick, and Professor Mark Lamont Hill, host of News. Well, welcome to all of you.
Hey, just before we get in, if you look at his face. Okay, normally he's more smiling. He got his button up shirt, just looking real professional. That's the Mark Lamont Hill I'm used to seeing. But when I seen this right here, when I seen his face, he ain't playing. This is the Mark that you don't play with in the hood right here. You know what I'm saying? If you're having this conversation one-on-one, he might whoop on you if you come at him wrong. And that's the look of a dude you don't fuck with. All right, but let's go ahead.
I want to start with the Daniel Penny breaking news if I can, with you, Tommy, because I've been sort of incandescent about this case, as I think you have from the start. The idea that a war hero is in his civilian life on a subway and watches a completely deranged lunatic threatening to kill people, and he apprehends him and prevents him from harming anybody, and in the process, clearly, accidentally, didn't mean to do this, the guy falls unconscious and then he dies. And it's a tragic accident that happened, but it was entirely precipitated.
Okay, so once again, I apologize for pausing. It just, I feel the frustration, and I'm pretty sure 9 times out of 10 you feel it too. So I just need to say it. Okay, for second off, it's my show, so damn, give me a break. But just the way that he even phrased that was disingenuous. Like when I broke it down really simply at the top of this video, I didn't have to add, a war hero, in his civilian life, runs upon or is face down a lunatic, a crazy foaming at the mouth lunatic. Like, you're already framing a picture so people who are listening already have a slanted vision of what happened. And for him to say, and he didn't mean to do it, like, Piers, how do you know? With that big ass head, are you a mind reader or something? Tell me what I'm thinking right now. With that big ass head, you probably could from millions of miles away. So that's what I'm saying. Just the way that he's presenting this is disingenuous, and it's upsetting. Piers, you have to learn how to do better, bro. This ain't it.
By this deranged lunatic going on a subway and threatening to kill people. A subway system, by the way, in New York, where people have been killed quite regularly in recent years. This guy is a hero, and yet he was treated like a criminal who should be thrown into jail for the rest of his life. Now, I think justice has been served, and he's been released, a free man, but with huge damage to his life, to his reputation, and so on. What do you make of this case?
Well, I'll also say damage to his reputation if he chooses to remain in New York City. If he comes to a great red state like the one I'm in right now, Tennessee or Texas or many other great states around this country, he'll be treated like the hero that he is. There's a lot I have to say on this, Piers, but I'd also say for those BLM grifters who are now coming out threatening to burn down the city, making this all about their race baiting grift, how dare you, and shame on you. You did not care about Jordan Neely when he was a homeless man living on the streets, struggling with mental health problems and possibly a drug addiction. You didn't care about him then. You probably stepped over him on your way elsewhere. But now all of a sudden, when you can use his name and you can use his death to fundraise for BLM or to get out your pent-up aggression or to claim racism, now all of a sudden you care about someone like Jordan Neely. It's all too rich for me, Piers. Expect to see New York.
So once again, I really dislike her, but just to answer her question, first off, I don't understand if there's organizations in New York, and once again, I've never been there. I'm pretty sure people who live in New York can answer this better, but if there was organizations in those local areas, I wish they would have done something. If I remember, actually, he actually was a part of some, rehab centers once or twice or even 3 times. So for her to say like people were stepping around him and now want to use him as some political stunt, that's literally what she's doing. Like, she doesn't care about him or even after he's dead. So once again, it's like that kind of works both ways. And if someone is speaking out on his behalf, that doesn't mean that they're trying to now use it as a political like leverage or a tool. So once again, that's just really fancy talk for her base, who, just want to use the slogan Black Lives Matter once again. Like, that's just who she is. So
City once again descend into mayhem and chaos because BLM needs attention. The pro-terrorist, anti-Semites, anti-Israel protesters have been taking all the wind out of their sails, getting all the attention. So now they want to be back in the headlines. But I don't think they're going to be met with the same sentiment that they had with George Floyd in 2020. People are sick and tired of this, and people know that Daniel Penny was a hero, is a hero, and should be treated like one.
Well, that's how I feel. A lot of people don't. Hawk Newsom, the founder of BLM in New York, has said that anyone who thinks Penny is innocent has racism in their heart before saying the KKK got another victory. Hypocrisy. Now, I want to play, before I go to you, Mark, I want to play, this is a clip of Jordan Neely's father talking about his reaction to the verdict.
I just want to say, I miss my son. My son didn't have to go through this. I didn't have to go through this either. It hurts. Really, really hurts. What are we going to do, people? What's going to happen to us now? I had enough of this. The system is rigged.
Now, Mark, I'm sorry. Listen, I've got a lot of feeling for any father whose son dies in those circumstances. But the idea the system has been rigged over this, the idea that this guy, Jordan Neely, clearly mentally unwell, homeless, and potentially violent. Nobody knew his propensity for violence. All they knew was he was acting in a very threatening way and threatening to kill people. And you have a guy who's from the military, who knows how to disarm people, who did exactly what he was trained to do. And then an accident occurred, and it's incredibly unfortunate. But he did not want to let this guy go in case he got up and carried out his threat. Are you really going to try and argue? I don't know if you are. I'm just pointing.
So once again, I'm not sure if Jordan Neely had a weapon. So for Piers to say that he disarmed him and did what he does best, once again, I'm not. I've never been a part of the military, but I don't think you can use your training in civilian life. I think that might be some sort of like illegal type of actions going there. But once again, for Piers to paint this picture is disingenuous. So let's go ahead and listen
Question
to Mark.
to you, really. But is this really the way it's being framed, as a victory for the KKK? That if you don't think this guy is guilty, you've got racism in your heart?
I don't think that that's the dominant position from people like myself who are critical of what happened and who are disappointed in the outcome of the trial. I think it's too simplistic to say that anybody who disagrees with me is a member of the KKK or has beliefs like the KKK. I think that becomes almost like a straw man argument. I think there are a few things that we need to talk about with regard to framing. The first thing is, as you pointed out, Piers, this man is mentally unwell. This person was struggling with mental illness. That's very different than the initial introduction to this segment that you gave, where you said he was a deranged lunatic. And as you repeated multiple times, deranged lunatic, it would communicate to the audience and to everyday people everywhere that the only way to stop this person from, destroying the subway and killing everybody was to put him in a 6-minute chokehold.
But he was behaving like a deranged lunatic. Sorry, Mark, he was. I mean, it's indisputable. Nobody knew at the time what his mental health status was. All they knew was he was behaving. He was behaving in a lunatic manner, threatening and potentially dangerous. Nobody knew if he was armed. Nobody knew what he might do. People were terrified. So I'm afraid, for all intents and purposes, the guy was behaving like a deranged lunatic. It turns out after the event, we discover he has mental illness. But let's not pretend that in the moment he wasn't acting like a deranged lunatic, because he was.
I wasn't. I wasn't saying that. You interrupted before I could finish the thought. You would understand I wasn't saying that. What I'm saying is that someone with a mental illness may or may not be violent. Most people with mental illnesses in public space, according to all the evidence, all the data, are not violent threats. And so I'm saying that we should not presume that they are. I don't have an issue with you saying, hey, I'm going to subdue this person because I believe that they are unsafe for the particular context that we're in. What I take issue with is saying that I'm going to put them in a 6-minute chokehold because that's the only way to stop them from doing harm when we don't know that. And that's the additional piece of this.
Out of interest,
the second piece of this,
Piers,
Piers, you spoke uninterrupted and so did the other guests. So let me finish the thought before you disagree with it, please.
Hey, like I said, do not F with Mark Lamont Hill, Dr. Mark Lamont Hill. Like I told you, he got the face. Don't mess with him today. And Piers is always trying to overtalk on people. You ain't gonna do that today. And I'm so glad. It makes me happy in my heart. Mark, put Piers in his spot. Say, hey, bro, shut up. That simple. So, hey, thank you, Mark. Thank you.
The second point here is I actually agree with, which is that there are systemic issues here. There's poverty, there's homelessness, there are all these things that a lot of the world does not pay attention to until there is a crisis. That's not a BLM issue, that's not a conservative issue, that's not a left or right issue. The fact of the matter is we ignore this. The failure of the system here is not what happened on that subway. It's the fact that a person with mental illness can go untreated, unsupported, and houseless without any support, and then we end up with situations like this.
Right, but
and that's when I heard the dad speak on, the system is rigged. I mean, once again, just from what I got from there, it is for poor people. It is for middle class people who are barely making it. You can't afford the help that you need. You can't afford the medication. You can't afford housing. You can't afford food. You can't afford anything. The necessities. You know what I'm saying? And just the way that it's structured, it is rigged. Like that's not a debatable thing. That's a real factual thing that hasn't even been closely addressed since I've been born. You know what I'm saying? So once again, like, how do you argue that it's not? Because I'm pretty sure if he could have got the help, if many people could get the shelter, could get the help that they need, get the job that they need, 9 times out of 10, a lot of these homeless people would be taken care of. But unfortunately, our system don't prioritize them as they should. And like Mark said, once something like this happens, now people want to speak up and say something. And at that point, I don't want to say it's too late, but yeah, we already got a man down. You know what I'm saying? But let's go ahead and continue.
For his father to be lecturing everybody in the way that he did, again, I don't have a lack of empathy for him losing his son, but the lecture that he gave, his son is wandering around as a homeless, mentally ill person on the subway threatening people. With all due respect to his father, where was his father in his life? I mean, is that a reasonable question to ask? If that was one of my sons, I would feel an accountability and responsibility for the actions of one of my children.
So Piers, once again, you doing a lot of assuming here. How do you know his father isn't in the same situation? How do you know his father is not homeless himself or struggling with keeping shelter and food and can't afford the medication? Piers, not everybody is well off like you. Once again, stop being disingenuous. Just let other people speak if you don't have nothing constructive to add to the conversation. Piers, do better.
Would you?
I probably would, but I also don't think that that's the most important question. I may share with you the opinion. In fact, I do share with you the opinion that, hey, we should talk about family structures. We should talk about parenting. We should talk about fatherhood. But when a father's son is dead in this moment, we as a nation, just like with the healthcare issue, we have an opportunity to talk about the broader system instead of us criticizing how a mourning father is dealing with his dead son. Let's talk about the conditions that got us there. Let's not play a blame game.
Well, we're going to come to the cold-blooded execution of a healthcare executive, which I think is unfathomable to me that people would celebrate that happening literally within seconds of the guy being gunned down. But we're going to come to that debate in a moment, and obviously, Taylor, you're going to be a key part of that. But Tommy, I just sense that there's already a building momentum for this to be treated like a mini George Floyd situation. Now, I found the George Floyd story horrific. I thought what that police officer did was indefensible and appalling. But it's a completely different set of circumstances. This guy, Daniel Penny, he's a Marine veteran. He's on a subway and he's watching somebody directly threatening to kill people. And he apprehends him and he holds him down because he doesn't want him to be a threat to the lives of people around him. That used to be the kind of behavior that would win people medals for valor. Now you end up in a criminal court facing the rest of your life in a prison cell. And that's what.
So once again, I don't know if Pierce understands. It doesn't really matter the circumstance as much as if you are apprehending somebody for whatever the situation is and you kill the person, people have to look into that. It doesn't matter if you're a Army veteran. And so all of a sudden we don't need to worry about the details, Piers. That matters. We just don't give people blanket immunity just because they served in the military. Because guess what? I know a few people who served in the military and they're dumb as fuck. They're assholes and they will do and they have done some dumbass things and they probably belong in jail. So once again, that doesn't mean that they're like Captain America or something. You know, reading too many comics is going to dilute your perspective when it comes to individuals who serve in the Army. They're still people. Once again, if you're finding yourself apprehending someone and people are telling you, hey, you're going to kill him, and you have him in a chokehold for 6-7 minutes, you run a possibility of killing that person. And if you kill somebody, you could be held liable for that. That's not hard to understand. You know what I'm saying? But once again, Pierce is not here to be a objective, voice in a conversation. He's just here to be an asshole and just to agitate people. Cause hey, look at his voice. Look at his face. He's agitating people, obviously.
What I find so just I can't understand it. How has society moved to punishing people like Daniel Penny for doing a good citizen's job, trying to protect people? I don't get it.
Well, you only can understand it if you're in Manhattan and you're in the mind of DA Alvin Bragg. There's a whole lot we can talk about there. Not a lot of things that office wants to prosecute outside of Donald Trump and Daniel Penny and other heroes. But I would also say this, when we're talking about this case and Daniel Penny, and we're talking about the race element here, let's keep in mind, Daniel Penny is a big guy. He's strong. He's young. He's a former Marine. If he's on that subway and Jordan Neely comes in threatening people, probably the last person that's going to be the victim is Daniel Penny. He can hold his own. Daniel Penny stood up to protect people that maybe couldn't protect themselves, right. The women, the children. Also, if you look at the footage from that subway, a lot of those people in the subway were people of color. So you have a white man that's standing up to protect people of color in a subway, and yet BLM is so desperate for their grift and for their attention that they really want to make this about race. The way I see it is you have a Marine, who cares that he's white, standing up to protect people. He didn't care what color Neely was. He didn't care what color the people were around him. Yeah. He wanted to do the right thing.
I completely agree. Mark, it has nothing to do with skin color. And people that try and...
oh my God. Hey, Pierce, man, you're sinking low to the bottom every second that I hear your ugly ass voice. Okay, check this out. You see how he just right away put that framing on Mark. Say, hey, Mark, it's not about race. Mark said nothing about race. That's not his argument. But hey, Mark, you need to defend his position that I'm just throwing on you because, hey, I guess because you're black. So obviously you got to be upset about that, right? Man, Jesus Christ, man.
Imply that it is. They are the ones playing the race card. I honestly believe that on this story. I've studied it in detail. I've seen all the footage. I've seen all the accounts. This is not a race story. Daniel Penny didn't do anything predicated on the skin color of Jordan Neely. He did it to protect people, as Tommy said, black, white, whoever. They were a multiracial subway at the time. Right? Where's the race element of this?
I'm fascinated by the certainty with which you say
Well, you tell me
he
why
wasn't
I'm wrong.
motivated by
Tell me why I'm wrong.
race. I'm not telling you you're wrong. What I'm telling you is that I have no idea what was in Daniel Penny's head. He could have been motivated by race. He could not have been motivated by race.
The jury did. That's why they just cleared him.
I would disagree with anyone who says he did that because of race. But I would also disagree with you saying unequivocally that race wasn't on his mind. You have no idea, but you have a
there is no
tendency
evidence.
to say things
There's no evidence.
You have but
zero.
I agree with you, and that's why
zero evidence.
And that's why.
So it's completely concocted.
I disagree with that. It's not completely concocted when you look at actual data on these types of things. But the bigger issue
data
for me,
on
because
these
again,
types
I'm not
of
making a
things.
race.
How many types of these have there been?
Because
give me another one.
How many times?
How many times has a Marine veteran done a 6-minute chokehold to protect people on a subway from somebody who shouted, "I'm going to kill you"? How many times has that happened that you can rattle off right now, given you say it happened?
Mark is about to lose his shit right now. Let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and take a listen, man.
It's all the time.
So Piers, to be clear, I said things like this happen all the time, and the kind of sardonic question that you're asking seems clever to people who aren't smart, but as someone who's a trained social scientist, you don't have to have the exact same contextual factors to make comparisons.
Sorry, Mark, I'm sorry. You don't have to be a trained social scientist.
For example, it were a school bus instead of a subway, it wouldn't make it less important. If he were an Army vet instead of a Marine vet, it wouldn't make it less relevant. It's a silly question to ask me, when was the last time we're a Marine vet on a subway, blah, 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 blah. That's not the point.
Okay, so
my point is,
right,
I never made it about race.
Hang on.
I never made it about race.
Hang on. So far, you've called me dumb, silly, and you say you're...
I didn't call you dumb.
What kind of scientist are you?
I didn't call you dumb.
Gosh.
What scientist are you?
Time out. You're not listening. I think you're very smart. I think you're making an argument that will only be persuasive to people who are not as smart as you. I never said you were dumb.
Hey, Pierce, myself and people who are watching this, we're calling you dumb. We're calling you not smart, and your viewers who think you are just as ignorant and stupid as hell as can be. So yes, we are. Maybe not Mark here on live, but yes, you are, Pierce. Congratulations.
When you rewind this, you'll see I never called you dumb. Yeah. I said you were being sarcastic.
You don't need to be, with respect, Mark.
I think you're being snarky with the
Mark,
question.
you don't need to be with respect, you don't need to be a social scientist to know that there is zero evidence of any racial motivation for what Daniel Penny did. So people who are trying to infer it, that somehow, as the founder of BLM in New York says, if you think he's innocent, you're a racist, and the KKK just got another victory. I'm not a social scientist, but I know that's horseshit.
Right. Again, the statement from the BLM person in New York, I don't share, I don't echo, I don't agree with. You're asking.
Hey, Pierce, ding, ding, ding. Hey, why do you keep throwing that quote onto Mark? And I would just hate to think it's because Mark is black and we're talking about Black Lives Matter organization. So like, I would hate to just assume that you're thinking that Mark is going to take that position just because he's black. Maybe Pierce, if you took 10, 15, 20 seconds to shut your mouth and listen, you might be able to engage with the conversation a lot better and maybe get something out of this conversation for your viewers. But no, you just keep talking and you're not listening. That is the problem, Piers. Shut your mouth. There you go.
Me to defend a statement that I don't agree with. The statement that I am making, that you and I should be engaging, is the issue of implicit bias and the issue of use of force. There is
what bias?
There is. I said implicit bias.
Okay, let's extrapolate that. You think if Jordan Neely had been white and came on that subway, right, and was acting like a deranged lunatic, as he was, but if he'd been white, do you think that Daniel Penny wouldn't have intervened? Because that's what you're implying.
That's not what I'm implying. What I'm saying
bias
is,
then? Where's the bias?
Okay.
Man.
Where's
implicit bias? That's not what implicit. Okay. Let me use it. It's clear that you don't understand what implicit bias is, so let me just use a different word. With all due respect.
Hat on.
If you just let me finish the sentence, I promise you'll hear me. what I'm saying is that I have no reason to believe that he was motivated by race or that he was not motivated by race. But the idea that someone could be motivated by race is not outside of the realm of possibility based on ample data that shows that people are more likely to use force against black people, that they tend to believe that black bodies are stronger and more physically resilient, and therefore they think they have to hold them in chokeholds longer. There's plenty of police data that shows that, including New York Police Department data. So when you asked me to show other examples, no, I don't have examples of other Michael Jackson impersonators on subways being choked by Marines, but there is other evidence of people in very comparable circumstances where race has mattered. But again, I'm not making a racial argument. I'm saying that the guy choked him too long and he should still be alive right now. And the fact that he was held for that many minutes and people on the subway were literally saying, "You're killing him," that is evidence that he should have stopped. Again, I'm not taking issue with the subduing of him. I'm taking issue with how long he held him, how long he choked him, and that he didn't stop him. Once that big guy's on top of him and he has physical control, there's a whole subway watching, he could have stopped choking him. That's all I'm saying.
Listen. Obviously, he choked him for too long, or the guy.
And I hate we wasted about maybe 15 minutes going around circles talking about nothing of substance of this case, and then at the last minute where he actually let Mark put out his own perspective on the case, then Piers wants to say, it's obviously clear that he held him in a chokehold for two. Well, no shit, Piers. No shit. He died because of the chokehold. That's where the argument needs to be at. Is why did the jury not find that to be second degree manslaughter? Like that could be where the conversation should be sitting, but not about, it's because Penny is white and Jordan was black and this whole racism. Like that's not his position. And he quoted Black Lives Matter more than he engaged in Mark's conversation. Once again, the disingenuous conversations will get people nowhere, and it only will serve as clickbait for them. You know what I'm saying? But thank God I'm here to at least to try to engage in these important conversations, because we can't rely on this idiot and this idiot over here to do that. They only want to talk about the cultural conversations that they know about, which is race. That's all they want to do. But if they engaged in the real conversation, they would have nothing to add on to it.
I would still be alive. It's whether he did this deliberately, and obviously he didn't. So let's just agree on those two facts.
I disagree.
Let's move to the other.
and he ends it that quick. We spent all that time talking about nonsense and not the important key elements of this case. And that's why people hate these large media platforms, because they know what they're doing. They know how to get people emotionally engaged, like myself. Like this is emotion right here. And not talk about the substance, not talking about how New York could have done better to house and treat individuals like Jordan, instead of, because people knew him. He was famous for a reason, but yet he was homeless, and it could have been something done. That's what could have been talked about, solutions, so maybe there's not another incident like this in New York or anywhere. But no, of course we want to waste time to talk about, was it racism? And, BLM said this, BLM said this. Like, once again, guess what? BLM said this. Piers, please do better. That's all I'm asking. Do better. But once again, guys, if you agree or disagree, let me know in the comments down below, or hit that Discord button so me and you can have that one-on-one talk. And like always, let's have that conversation.